Hey everybody, this is Cameron from Obnoxious and Anonymous, once again joined by Mr. Josh Eisenstadt, and we are going to talk about, what we always talk about: Twin Peaks, David Lynch, other projects. I know we're going to also touch on Mulholland Drive tonight, probably the first of many conversations with that as well.
Absolutely.
But Josh, it's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for coming back.
My pleasure.
So before we do a deep dive, there's a few things that I feel like we need to touch on,
Okay.
and that is okay. First up, I know this is a David Lynch Twin Peaks discussion, but I have to just say, word got out today via Paul Schrader because he posted on Facebook. He's in the hospital with COVID for the second time, right after winning. I believe he won one of the top awards at the Venice Film Festival. So, Paul Schrader, get better, feel better, please, because COVID is no joke, and
no, it isn't.
Especially with somebody of his age.
Not at all.
Okay, next up, we've got a few things to touch on. I just have to say that this is really cool. So Full Moon Features, right? I sent away to get a couple of their Blu-rays because they were cheap, and I only ordered 2. But when I opened up, I noticed there was 3 discs in the package. I was like, "Well, this is bizarre. Like, I only ordered 2." Well, they put a thing called free gift in here, and it's a movie I've never seen, but I know you have, so I have to just ask you. They sent me Sherilyn Fenn's Meridian.
Oh,
I don't know anything about this film. But it says right here, free gift. So thank you, Full Moon Features, for sending me the free gift of Meridian. I look forward to that film.
I don't believe I have seen it, actually.
Okay. All right. Final.
I'm trying to think. I've seen a lot of the Sherilyn Fenn films. I'm trying to think of which one that is, if I've seen it or not.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So this is a couple big things happening, having to do with Disney. So D23 is this weekend, and they're making a bunch of announcements. Now, a little bird, can't say who, but a little bird whispered to me that they are thinking about announcing who's going to play Thrawn in a live-action Star Wars show or movie. I don't know what. But they said that there's a couple people still contending for the role. One of them is Kyle MacLachlan.
Oh, Kyle MacLachlan in Star Wars, huh?
I can see it. I mean, you got Denis Villeneuve's Dune going on.
Yeah, he was in Dune. I mean,
But not only that, but Kyle's also worked for Disney in Inside Out and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Marvel stuff. So
yeah, possible.
They know. But there's a possibility that Kyle MacLachlan might be a bad guy in a Star Wars TV show.
Mr. C in Star Wars, huh?
Well, if he gets that, he can basically say goodbye to Twin Peaks season 4. But the big news, Josh, is that Criterion made the announcement that they are partnering with Disney. So that means, you know what that means.
Yeah,
it means the Straight Story will probably we'll get a 4K release probably the next
with deleted scenes. Hopefully.
I don't know. They let me down with Lost Highway.
I know. That's why I'm hoping, but I'm really hoping. But maybe we get a 4K Lost Highway with deleted scenes in the future. Or am I being too optimistic here?
I don't know, but Criterion getting a partnership with Disney, like, I don't want them to release Snow White. Like, I want them to go hardcore. Like, let's do Song of the South. Let's do Something Wicked This Way Comes. The movies that Disney would never touch.
Right. The ones they don't want. Yeah, the ones they want to erase.
Exactly. Like, go for that. But
yeah.
I spoke with someone from Criterion years ago, and they said that their goal was to have every film of David Lynch's in their catalog. And I said, well, that's going to be interesting with the Straight Story. And they said, yeah, that's going to be the tough one to get. So if they're partnering with Disney, that basically means Straight Story is going to be probably sent to the top after Inland Empire. That's probably going to be the next one.
Well, then we need Wild at Heart.
We do have the Shout Factory release, but
for a Criterion.
Okay, here's the question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Lynch says he stopped Shout Factory from doing it, but I don't understand. Yes, it's 1 second of film with Willem Dafoe's body, but that's the version that won the Cannes Film Festival. Why wouldn't Lynch want that cut on the disc? Why does he keep wanting the 24 frames of censored smoke? I mean, it still looks brutal, but he allows you to watch it in the deleted section of the disc.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't, I mean, it's not like it was cut for,
yeah, it's just to get the R rating. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Come on, Lynch, just put it on the Criterion disc, And if you really want to make me super happy, you'll put the full Wanna Harry Dean Stanton scene in there.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure you know the story about that, right?
Right. Everyone got up and left.
Yeah, twice.
Right. But yeah. I mean, it was basically like they just took Harry Dean Stanton's blood and like made out, right? With it.
A little bit more extreme than that, even.
Really?
There was the stump of his head.
Okay.
And they were doing more. There was an implication that there was more than making out that was about to go on, if you get my gist.
Got it. Okay.
And they were doing that over his stump, the stump of a head that they had.
Oh, okay.
And so apparently that made people turn against the film. And apparently, they did the whole thing with the bottles, because we only get a little bit of it in the deleted scenes on the lime green set and that are on the other releases. We just get a little bit more of Wanna doing her stuff with the bottle.
I know they teased us with that because I thought, oh my God, they're going to give it to us here. And then they didn't. It's one of those scenes where I can't even imagine them testing that, because it's like you would think just shooting it. And I remember there's a line that Nicolas Cage said when they were filming the dance scene in the club, when they're dancing, all of a sudden then he sings the song Tallulah, that like when they were doing the like the mosh dancing with in the club with the strobe lights, Nicolas Cage at one point in between setup says, David, what kind of rating are you wanting to get with this film? Because I guess they had them like in each other's crotches and things like that. Right. And not in the final version. I guess you see a little bit of her on the floor, but apparently there was a lot more. So
I could believe it.
So can I. I mean, Wild at Heart is a film that, part of it is about excess.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
So that makes sense. All right. There's a few things I feel like we need to talk about before we even get into Mulholland Drive. So just kind of bear with me with a few of these Twin Peaks questions. And I know we're always going to come back to probably Twin Peaks at some point because the lore is so deep. But there's a few things I've been jotting down since we last spoke.
Okay.
So, one of the implications in the original series is that Leo is redoing the kitchen and there's plastic all over the place, right? And it seemed like that because Laura was with Jacques and Leo and Ronette, that because Leo was there, that there could have been some plastic there and so Leland took advantage of that and wrapped Laura up in the plastic. So if that's not the case, because Teresa's wrapped in plastic, what is the whole wrapped in plastic about then? Like, why is Leland / Bob wrapping these women up in plastic?
I think it's I've gone back and forth between thinking that's Bob's ritual and Leland's, but I actually think it might be more Leland's ritual. And I think it has, well, generally I think the plastic also would be to keep, evidence away. But the putting in the water, the plastic and the putting in the water just seems to be almost it's very ritualistic. And I think it might be Leland's way of quote unquote cleansing them, particularly with Teresa and Laura Palmer.
Right. But here's the thing. Why is Leland waiting till he's mid-40s to commit his first crimes?
Well, that's always a question. And I've wondered that too, because I mean, we don't know for sure. Well, then again, we don't know for sure that Teresa was his first, though it is highly implied, especially when he's dying and he confesses to killing Teresa, but nobody else.
Well, not only that, but whenever Bob talks about it, it's always references to Teresa, because the
Yeah.
letters are spelling out his name, and they have T.
Yeah, backwards. Of course, there's a missing E, which you could also say is Jacques Renault.
Okay.
If you're spelling it backwards, it would be T first Teresa, R second for Laura Palmer, right?
Right.
But then you would need an E. That would be before the B, which is Ronette Pulaski. And the only one he kills between that would be Jacques Renault. So it could be that he was going to put that under Jacques' fingernail, but when the fire alarm went off, he had to get out before he could do it.
So he skipped the E. He's an equal opportunity killer and sticking letters on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would think, because it seems to be spelling it backwards, but he skips the E, because then we go from, the B to the O. So, there'd be another R if Leland would have survived. But I think that's Leland, thinking it could be Bob too, but kind of in between that of a way of cleansing, so to speak, the dirtiness.
But I mean,
which seems to be more of Leland.
I mean, the plastic. Where is he getting this plastic?
Well, we know he doesn't have the plastic when he goes into the cabin. So the implication would be that he knew he was going to take him to the train car, and he probably had the plastic in the train car already.
Well, that's what it's implied in the theatrical film, because all of a sudden he just brings it out, right?
So we probably had it hidden in that train car. And having been in that train car in real life, it's a lot bigger. It's pretty big. There's a lot of room and a lot of space. It went way back.
Right.
The actual train car. I was there in 1991, early. I believe it was early 91, before it was done.
So there's this talk that it got broken down and shipped to Japan, but then other people have told me that are locals that no, it's still there in Washington State in the train museum over there, and they've shown it to me. Can you tell us for sure? Is it still in Washington or is it in Japan?
I think the Japan thing is a rumor. I've heard the Washington rumor too, but I've never seen pictures that match, so it's hard to say.
I will send you the picture I took of it.
Okay, definitely. I will tell you if that's the right one or not.
Okay. All right.
But, it's a different one, because in Fire Walk With Me, the one with the sliding door that, Ronette gets pushed out of is different.
Right.
Than what we see in the pilot.
Right. No, in that pilot, that's like literal trains in the woods.
Yeah, and it was down where it was. If anybody who's familiar with Snoqualmie, the highway that if you're going to the Salish, you could cross that bridge to the Salish. Right before that bridge, there's a highway that goes up to the freeway now. Mm-hmm. That wasn't there. That was just a trail into the woods. And in the woods, probably about maybe quarter mile in, that's where the train car was, right there.
Wow.
And then they bulldozed it all and created that road.
Okay. All right. A few more here. In the deleted scenes or missing pieces, when Philip re-enters, whole bunch of burn marks on the wall when he reemerges. Mm-hmm. Is that to imply that because the woodsmen are all burnt up and you were talking about the person who came into Teresa's trailer being a possible woodsman too,
right?
Is there any correlation between Philip Jeffries coming back into different realities and leaving sort of like like the Back to the Future, like streak marks of the the flames?
It could be similar, but I always thought that was more along the lines of the traveling through the electricity, because we get the shots of the telephone poles in the theatrical cut.
Right.
So I've always thought it was more of the coming through that electricity, just scorching the wall out when he comes through there.
Right. Okay.
But it could also be related to the woodsman. That's very possible. And that could also be part of the reason all the traveling through the electricity could be how the woodsman got that way too.
Yeah.
They could have scorched themselves.
I really enjoy all this electricity talk when we talked about it last time. Got me really happy about that. Okay. Last time we spoke, you talked about how Mike, that's possible his noise that he is doing in the basement, right? Which makes perfect sense.
I believe it is 100%, because every time we hear that noise, we hear it in the basement. When Cooper goes through that door, he sees Mike appear out of the darkness. Also, when Bushnell Mullins hears it in the hospital, it hypnotizes him. It makes him leave the hospital. And right away, Cooper wakes up, and who appears but Mike? So I think that noise is associated with Mike, just like the other noise is associated with the arm.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
completely agree with you on that. So my question is,
Mhm.
why does Ben and Beverly hear this noise?
Because I think it's coming from the boiler room, and it's Mike. Mike is waiting
Okay.
for Cooper to appear, and that portal is open down there through that door. Now, as to whether that was Cooper's door kind of reconfigured, or that at least the handle, the keyhole was put down there for whatever reason, that's another question. But I do think that Mike had already created that portal down there for Cooper to use when he got there, and that's why when Mike was
So
present or around that area, we heard it. Ben and Beverly heard it.
if Mike is down there, then who is in the red room giving Cooper / Dougie all these,
Well, also Mike,
okay,
but he's
because
not there simultaneously.
he's not referenced at all as Philip Gerard in season 3.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I think as to whether Philip Gerard's physical body, what's happened with that, I mean, I tend to think that
It's probably
it seems
dead.
more likely that Philip Gerard's physical body is no longer alive, and he is, now just that kind of spiritual being in the lodge, would be my
Because
guess.
because in season 2, I think it's the Tim Hunter episode of 16.
Hmm.
That's the last moment we ever see of Mike in the show at all. Like
Correct.
he doesn't even show up in the finale.
Correct. Yeah, that's it.
And the implication is that Cooper got his information, just walked out, and you see Mike lay in the bed like kind of panting. But I always got the feeling like that he died after that.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it was the 1994 Twin Peaks Festival. I remember asking Al Strobel if his character died or not, and his answer was, "I don't." As I recall, was something along the lines of, "I don't think so, but I don't know."
Well, the fact that they never even mentioned him again in season 2, I just kind of assume that.
Well, we do get one little reference, and that's in episode 25 with the bureau with the when Earl went boing, the doctors discovered he was on haloperidol, the
Right.
same drug that one-armed man Gerard was on. What's that? Gerard used the same drug, right? That scene
Exactly.
is really the only reference we get. Yeah, so and it doesn't tell us, like you said, whether it's alive or not.
No, I mean, I always wanted to know if Truman ever bought those shoes or not. So
Yes,
it's kind of it's a cliffhanger. They never answered.
the shoe for all seasons.
All right,
Something
now
more practical.
this isn't on my list, but all the handshaking going on towards
Oh
the end
yeah,
of season
okay.
2. Okay, so we had obviously I understand maybe Cooper and stuff, but like, why is the lady with the pie like doing? Is that to imply that like everybody's like screwed? That we just
I
don't
think
see?
that maybe she got, because you'll notice we see a very similar thing in part 11 of season 3 when Gordon Cole, when he
Right,
almost goes into the portal at the zone,
right,
then his hand's shaking the same way, and he
right,
stops.
right.
So I think it implies that maybe that woman, who we see a lot, throughout the series in the background, I think that maybe she got a little bit maybe too close to an entrance or a portal and was not aware of it. Maybe she went hiking on Blue Pine Mountain. Who knows? She
Yeah,
might have got too close to something and is feeling the
she
effects.
was snapping twigs off the 13th sycamore.
Yeah, she did not heed the warning to beware the 13th sycamore. Exactly. She messed with
Exactly.
the sycamore trees, and now, I mean, I would say that would be my guess, is that it has something to do that she got close to some kind of opening that
Okay.
created that. Based a lot on the Gordon Cole, what we see with Gordon Cole later.
All right. So let me just throw out, like we've talked about Firewalk with Me and how much we really like it. Let me just
Mhm.
throw out one other complaint that I forgot to bring up.
Okay.
And that is we have an R-rated David Lynch movie about Laura Palmer. There is no scene with Bobby and Shelley.
Right.
And the fact that season 1 is so much of it is playing up the steaminess of their relationship. I thought for sure that we were going to get some sort of steamy scene with them in the movie. And because the tagline of the movie, I know it's not Lynch's tagline, but it was still New Line's tagline. In a town like Twin Peaks, no one is innocent. So wouldn't you want to see that even though Bobby's going to, yell at Laura for, maybe cheating on him, with another person, that he's also cheating on her.
Yeah.
And they don't even, the only time you even get an inkling, you got to be in on the know, is in that angelic point of view shot in the double R where Norma says, "Why did you do that, Shelley?" And she goes, I was busy. Like, that's it.
Yeah, you're not that busy. Exactly.
Like, okay, so
Yeah.
that's implying that she was, hooking up with Bobby, but really not. I mean, if you didn't know, I mean, you wouldn't catch that at all.
And her kind of her and Laura giving each other the cold shoulder when they walk past each other is kind of the closest we get to an implication of any of it.
But that's the thing. It's like you have this opportunity of like Laura, it's her last week. She's gonna kind of go into this no BS kind of attitude of everything. We were talking about the Josie potential, Like, wouldn't you love to have seen, like, if you're not going to have a Laura versus Audrey moment in the film, can we have a Laura versus Shelley moment in the movie?
It would have been good. Yeah, it definitely would have been. It would have been nice.
But I mean, it's not even like a missing piece. Like, there's nothing in the script of that. And
No.
I'm saying, like, if you were a co-writer with Lynch on Fire Walk with Me, wouldn't that be something you'd be kind of pushing for? Like, let's touch
Definitely
on the
would have
fact
brought
that
it up. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
It would have been good. But like I said, with Fire Walk with Me, the longer the better, as far as I'm concerned. So,
I know, but I'm just saying there's certain, if you have a tagline saying no one is innocent, you kind of have to show us that, I mean, that people
but
are
Shelley's
innocent.
not either. Yeah.
Right. I mean, okay.
Yeah, because the closest we get is Bobby calling Leo when Shelley's in the kitchen. That's the closest we get, really, of Bobby and
but
Shelley.
There's no implication that she's dating Bobby in that scene.
No, none at all, because she doesn't even necessarily know it's Bobby. She doesn't know it's Bobby on the phone. She has no idea.
Okay. And one other complaint, sorry guys, but is when I was watching the theater and Bobby said the F word while he was on the payphone talking to Leo, I remember getting very upset because I remember thinking the show already established vocabulary. And it's not like some of other Lynch's movies where there's the F word every, a lot of times. It's very sparingly used in the film. And I believe that's even an ad lib from Dana Ashbrook. So it was like, I got really upset about that because I was like, no, it's already established vocabulary. The only person who should curse in this movie is Laura.
Which she does.
She does. But it's because there's very little profanity in Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
So that's
season
why
3 brings has quite a bit more. A bit more in the third season.
Okay, but I would be okay with that because it's 25 years later and the doppelganger's out and the world's gone to hell anyway.
Exactly. And a lot of it is coming from, characters like the Mitchum brothers and, certain characters that we didn't see before.
Exactly.
Ray Monroe.
Right. Okay. I saw this on Twitter the other day and I thought it was pretty cool. They showed the scene at the start of Carrie when she's in the shower and the girls are all making fun of Carrie. And at a certain point at the end of that scene, Carrie screams and the light bulb explodes out and they compare that to the ending of season 3. And I thought that's kind of cool because it's Carrie screaming and the light explodes.
And the lights go out.
Yeah.
I always did wonder too, because if you look at all the, the allusions with the names in Twin Peaks, the films and stuff, I did wonder a long time ago, actually, if Carrie was Carrie Page was a reference to that Carrie. You also got the Piper Laurie connection.
Absolutely. And I remember when I interviewed Piper Laurie, the day that Twin Peaks, I believe, I think it was like the day or two after season 3 was announced, interviewing her, and she says, "Oh, I can't wait to get that call to come back." And I was so sad that she didn't come back.
I really thought she was going to be back, especially after, when you read the stuff about her in The Secret History, it seems like there would have been a really good opportunity. I would have loved to have seen a scene with her and Ben.
Yes.
To kind of see where they both are. And I think that would have been really good.
Obviously, it was done this way for a couple of reasons. One was to keep the secrecy. Another would be to create a sense of isolationism. But in season 3, you'll notice that like very few of the characters ever have scenes with other characters. So it's like everybody's kind of got their own isolated thing. I mean, Ben doesn't leave his office. There's not like a scene of like, like the wedding scene or the Leland's wake. There's not a moment where like the town is together. Everybody is kept separate.
Yeah.
And at first I thought, well, that's pretty clever because basically you can give them their scenes and they don't need to know what it's happening. and then they can't blab the whole thing. I mean, even Charlene Fenn, I believe, has gone on record to say she didn't even know she had a son until she watched the show.
Yeah.
Which I kind of go back and forth on. I'm like, yeah, that might have changed her performance if she knew, that she had a son. But then again, it does work in terms of, the town feeling distant away from each other if you keep everybody away. I mean, I remember being very excited when Dr. Jacoby's talking to Nadine. I'm like, oh my God, people are talking to each other again in this town, or obviously Ed and Norma scene.
Right.
Which
Bobby coming into the diner in part 13 with Ed and Norma there was another one. Yeah, that's just a good one where you kind of got them. The characters.
Oh yeah, like that scene of like when Bobby and Shelley are sitting there with Becky in the diner,
and Red shows up.
Right, but if you notice, like so many times the cutaways to Peggy Lipton feel like they were shot another time. You know what I mean? Like they just.
Well, I think a lot of her scenes in that back booth were shot at the same time because it does cut back to that in several episodes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, interesting stuff. Let's see, is there anything else here? I think. Oh no. We talked last time. People got really excited about this. We brought up the floating idea. I don't know if it's a completely thought out thing, but the idea that Chet Desmond was a tulpa.
Yes, it wasn't. It was kind of a spur of the moment. It wasn't totally thought out, but I have thought about it a little bit more.
All right. Well, let me just show this one thing, and then we can bring that up. And that is this shot here. When I saw this shot in the movie theater, I thought he was an alien because he looks exactly like Cooper did when he's being interrogated by Roger Jackson, where Cooper, after Major Briggs disappears, kind of seems like he's kind of possessed by an otherworldly spirit. The way he talks, the way he locks eyes. And he's got the same eyes here that Cooper had. So am I reaching here, Josh, or is this? I guess in order to cement this idea, we have to confirm or deny that while it's not introduced in Fire Walk with Me, a lot of things were introduced in Fire Walk with Me that were expanded upon in season 3. So is the idea of a potential tulpa, was that something that Lynch and Ingalls floated about back in the day? If it was, then we can draw a line through that. But if it's not, then we're just seeing things.
Thing is, I think it's impossible to know. I can't say yes or no whether or not they floated that. But considering that there were certain things that we know were already in the works, like the 1956 stuff, it's very possible that it was. So if we operate under the assumption that it was, just for the sake of argument, and then see if everything fits. And in a way, it does explain, because we know that just putting the ring on your finger doesn't make you disappear. Right. We've seen plenty of people put on the ring. Nobody disappears when they put it on. So, but we also know, like you said, when a tulpa dies, they disappear. We know that. We've seen it happen with Diane. We've seen it happen with the original Dougie Jones. We know it happened with Lois Duffy in Olympia, Washington. We know certain things that this occurs. So it would totally explain Chet Desmond's disappearance. He puts the ring on, and then somebody kills him.
Right.
And then he vanishes, that tulpa. And the real Chet would be somewhere else.
Steven in the chat says Chet was a real life tulpa in a way, since he's doing what Cooper should have been doing, obviously in the original script and in the My Life, My Tapes. And also his name, right? CD, Chester Desmond, DC, Dale Cooper.
Reversed.
I never thought about it until I started talking with you. And now I'm kind of leaning into this idea of like, was Chet Desmond kind of sent there in the way he was, like we were talking about him being kind of hypnotized by Teresa's picture and all that. Obviously it's not this way. It's not this way in the books, but if you just go by the timeline and the show and the movie, that if he disappears, that's a perfect reason to get the Black Lodge to bring Cooper to town.
Yeah. And it also gives them, if he's like a tulpa like Diane, where he has, like Diane has all of her own memories. She knows, it's unlike Dougie Jones, who doesn't remember Cooper at all, the Dougie Jones tulpa. Diane's tulpa is created in such a way that she knows all of her memories. She has basically remembers everything that Diane's gone through and believes she's Diane, except in that last moment.
Right.
And there's certain things that trigger her and make her respond to Mr. C, the certain messages that she responds to, the all with a smiley face that makes her try to shoot Gordon and Tammy and Albert, certain things that trigger her. So I would imagine if Chet Desmond is a tulpa, the one we see in Fire Walk with Me would be the same thing. He would think he's Chet Desmond, but there'd be certain things that would trigger him to go into a certain state, like what happened with Diane. And that Teresa Banks picture could be one of those. The curious woman who is very Woodsman-esque that we talked about that comes into the trailer could also trigger him to, in some way.
And at Hap's Diner, he's in the room with the electricity sparks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he believes he's Chet, but these things could trigger him, and he could be responding. Obviously, this is before there was text messaging, but he could be responding in other ways to some lodge entity that's controlling him without him even really knowing. So they have kind of an inside person by creating this tulpa in the Blue Rose Task Force, which is possible. And then when they don't need him anymore, they use that as a way to get Dale Cooper in on the case. And the rest is history.
I mean, obviously, we know the production stories about the film, so he wasn't even supposed to be a character originally. Yeah. And that explains why he's never mentioned in the original series. But it is kind of cool to think about. He's never mentioned again, right? Except for season 3, they dropped the Blue Rose Task Force. 12. Right.
Yep.
But it is interesting. Yes, but other than that, but then there's somebody like Wyndham Earle who they never mention, and yet his presence is everywhere in season 3.
Yes, completely. The briefcase, the stuff we talked about last time, the briefcase, the bonsai tree,
the music at the end of the mixed with Sleepwalk and all that.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I'm now kind of leaning in this direction. I'm at least 80%. I'm at least 80% because that would imply that somebody killed Chet Desmond if somebody had wrote that on the car.
Yeah, I think they killed Chet Desmond's tulpa, and that's why he vanished. I mean, under this theory, I'm not saying I'm 100% convinced, but I like it as a possibility that they killed Chet Desmond's tulpa and they wrote "Let's Rock" on the car. And the "Let's Rock" also, then it also is a taunt to Cooper. "Let's rock! You're coming to town. We're going to start this. We're going to get you in the lodge. We're going to draw you in there." It becomes even more.
Right. Now it makes me wish that Chris Isaac had opened up the Palmer House door at the end.
Oh, could you imagine?
All right.
Where we see Alice Tremont's husband, and it's Chet Desmond.
Yeah. All right. I've had a theory for the longest time, and you just tell me I'm crazy, or whether you think there is some sort of sliver of potential fact in here.
Okay.
A lot of people trash the whole James and Evelyn, section of season 2. I believe, though, that while other people trash it, I think it's probably one of the things in season 2 that Lynch likes. And I feel like he is sort of doing his own version of it in a way when he made Lost Highway, the second half with Pete and Alice.
Right.
I feel like there's a lot of James and Evelyn in that section.
Including the scene where Pete Daden's riding the motorcycle.
Well, didn't he say, though, that he feels like Lost Highway is in the same universe?
I've heard that rumored, but I've never seen the actual. I've never seen him say that, but I've seen the rumor all over the place.
Right, me too. Because I mean, I do believe in an interconnected universe in a way. I do think that the Robert Blake character is obviously an entity of the Lodge. I don't think there's any way to say it other. And as much as I really like Lost Highway, I do think that Mystery Man scene at the party almost should have been the only scene we see him in, where he just goes, "Thank you," and then leaves the party, and that'd be it. Like the cowboy at Mulholland Drive. I know we see him one other moment, but it's not Monty Montgomery in the reshoot for the walking through the party scene.
We don't forget the "Hey, pretty girl, time to wake up."
Oh, that's right. Thank you. See, it's late here, so
no problem.
Anyway, so let's get into.
So we see him 2 more times, which means we did bad, right?
Oh, she definitely did bad.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna talk about Mulholland Drive, and maybe we'll bring up some other things along the way. But I have to ask you this, because obviously I have the Criterion 4K and all that, but I have the original DVD. Now I have to ask you
the 10 clues.
Here's the thing: is this some BS Universal marketing thing, or is this really David Lynch saying this?
I'm going to assume it's David Lynch, because I think if it wasn't, he would have definitely made a point of saying that wasn't me at some point.
All right. So let me just, for those of you who don't know, they had a little insert, and it says David Lynch's 10 clues to unlocking this thriller.
But if you think about it, I'm sorry.
No, I don't think he would label Mulholland Drive as a thriller, but okay.
No, he wouldn't. I think that's Universal, but It could be that I was going to say that Lost Highway, he kind of explained in a way that he's never explained any other film.
Absolutely.
He said 2 things that really explain Lost Highway: the psychogenic fugue and the O.J. Simpson connection.
Right.
Which very much explain it. So if we look at Mulholland Drive coming up, that it's he really explained Lost Highway. So doing the clues for Mulholland Drive, it's not too far off as a possibility. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you where you were?
No, it's okay. All right. So here are the 10. Number 1, pay particular attention in the beginning of the film. At least 2 clues are revealed before the credits. So that would be the jitterbug, and then her putting her head down
falling on the pillow. Yeah.
Right.
And also potentially too the jitterbug, and then also potentially her with Irene and Irene's husband, or Irene's companion, that she's credited.
True.
The old couple that are with by her side could be another clue.
They're another Treeman couple.
Yeah, exactly.
They're the Chalfons.
Yes.
Number 2, notice reappearances of the red lampshade. All right, thanks, Lynch.
Yeah, that one is referring to Diane Selwyn, the red lampshade, and we see it when Mr. Roke, the chain of phone calls from Mr. Roke, says the girl's still missing, and then we see the back of the man's head, the same, and the hairy arm man with the talk to me, and then he does that kind of weird thing with a rotary phone, and then we see the red lampshade, and we see the same shot when Diane Selwyn gets a call from Camila with Diane on the cars waiting.
Number 3, can you hear the title of the film that Adam is auditioning actresses for? Is it mentioned again?
Sylvia North Story, and it indeed is.
Yeah, it is. And of course, it's in the second half of the film, too.
Yeah, at the very when she's talking at the party scene. She auditioned for the Sylvia North Story, and she wanted the lead so bad, and Camila got the part.
See, I don't think these are real clues.
I mean, some of them are like that are pretty obvious if you watch the film closely. Some of them are, and then some of them are like the Where is Aunt Ruth are a little bit more abstract.
Like this one, number 4, an accident is a terrible event. Notice the location of the accident.
Yeah, we all know that one.
Outside Adam's house on Mulholland Drive. I mean, it's the title
exactly.
of the movie. 5, who gives a key and why?
Yep. Joe the hitman gives a key as a symbol that the hit is done.
Exactly.
See, a lot of these are kind of obvious answers, and that's the thing. That's why I could see him doing that.
Okay, number 6. Notice the robe, the ashtray, the coffee cup. Okay, what's he talking about Sarah Palmer for in this thing? And I don't care what the internet says. I know it's not them, but when they go in Club Silencio, that is Laura and Ronette sitting in that in those chairs. I don't care what anyone says. It is visually, it's implied.
Yeah, I was I got some behind the scenes story about that too, but I'll get to that later.
Okay, please don't forget.
Unless you want me to get to it now.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I remember I spoke before about the 2 days I was on the Mulholland Drive set.
Right.
So day 2, when they were done, they were going to go do that Club Silencio shot at the end of the night. And they had a Betty and Rita double that were there. And I remember...
But you were there for the filming of the pilot.
Yes. Club Silencio was shot during the pilot.
The whole thing with Rebecca Del Rio was shot for the pilot?
Yep.
But they didn't use it in the pilot.
Nope. It was like the dream sequence for the pilot of Twin Peaks. It was going to be part of a 15-minute closed ending if it needed to be. And I don't know what was going to happen.
I thought that was part of the reshoots, no?
No.
Wow.
Club Silencio was 100%. I can tell 100%. I was in the makeup trailer. I saw pictures of Richard Green as the magician. I saw pictures of Rebecca Del Rio. I was told by the makeup person about, we just did the scene where she was doing this amazing version of crying in Spanish.
Okay.
I mean, I'm there on
You're totally blowing my mind. I would have laid my life on the line saying that was part of the reshoots.
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I had a Betty and Rita double because you notice you don't see their face, and they were going to go do that after. And I remember, I don't remember what we were kind of having. They were breaking for a meal, and the first time they broke for a meal, I wasn't going to eat because I thought I'm kind of really a guest here. I can't really eat the food. And then it was Naomi Watts came up and said, "Nah, take whatever you want. Come on, you're with us. Just grab some food." So then at that point, I thought, okay. And David Lynch wasn't. He was in his trailer at the lunch break, so he wasn't there. He was in his trailer. He would meditate and then have his lunch and then come back.
Right.
They call everything lunch on a film set, even when it's dinner. It's called lunch.
So what can you tell us about the Laura Ronette lookalikes?
Oh, nothing about that.
Oh, okay.
Because that wasn't being shot. I was just talking about the Betty and Rita double in the shot where they go into Club Silencio, and just remembering sitting. I ended up sitting across from the Betty and Rita double, and they had said something about we're going to do a shot later where we walk into a club.
So was that was that somebody just trying to do like a Sam Raimi shot of them like running towards the door? Like how'd they achieve that kind of vibrating?
I don't know exactly what they did to achieve it, but I remember that when they were done wrapping that night, they were going to go and do that. And I just remember hearing talk about it being a fairly complex shot they were going to get.
Yeah.
And the two actresses had never heard of the two Betty and Rita double had never heard of Mulholland Drive. I've never heard of David Lynch. I remember them. I said, "You never heard of David Lynch?" I started like Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks, The Elephant Man. Like, no, we don't know those. Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. Right. A little behind the scenes story. But.
That's beautiful. Okay. Next up is what is felt, realized, and gathered at the Club Silencio. Well, obviously emotion, and they get the black box.
The blue box, yeah.
Blue box.
The blue box is gathered, and emotion, and I'd also say realization of Diane. No, I did see your video. Well, I'm sure we'll get into this of your theory on Mulholland Drive, which I'd never heard before, and I really liked. It's a completely different take.
Well, here's the thing, because Steven in the chat is saying, and hey, Joel, how good to see you. Steven says, I think these clues are mostly about getting you to realize the first part is a dream. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's not at all how I see the film. But anyway, we'll get into that in a minute.
We will get into it. And I've always seen it. Like I said, I've never heard your version of the theory before, which I find interesting. And I definitely have some questions that I wanted to ask you about that too.
Great. You're going to make my theory fall apart, right?
No. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that, Cameron. I promise. Because I like your theory, and I really like it because it's a different way of looking at it. Like I thought I had a slightly different way of looking at it, but you have a much more interesting, slightly different way of looking at it than I do. Because mine is, I've always thought that it was a dream, but I thought that the dream is placed differently. I thought that it's only partially a dream. I thought that that's her almost Jacob's Ladder-esque death.
Oh, okay.
That that her falling on the pillow at the beginning, which you said also, and I agree with it, is after she shot herself, slowly falling and the breath stops.
Right.
But so I would say that at Club Silencio, one of the things that's realized is that, and that's why the blue box is the repressed truth of the hit on Camila and her death. So when that's opened, they're both gone because they're both dead. And Aunt Ruth, well, we'll get to the Aunt Ruth in a minute. But I
wish David Lynch had shot a flashback of the kangaroo in the courtyard.
Yes, the prize fighting kangaroo would have been interesting.
Well, he brought back the kangaroo for Bushnell Mullins.
That is true.
So there's a tie-in.
Battling Bud.
Remember, didn't you think though when you saw season 3 that was going to be the boxing match Sarah was watching? Was Battling Bud, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I did wonder about that.
Number 8, did talent alone help Camilla? Well,
I'm going to say no.
Apparently she was like dating the director, so that always.
I'd say more than that because if we look at the first part, the traditional theory of the dream theory, or in my case, the death dream theory, which is where I'd say it is.
Right.
If we look at that traditional theory of it, then it would be, Mr. Roque and the Castiglione brothers would be basically Diane's rationalization of Diane was really the more talented one. Camila only got this because there's this conspiracy of the man behind the curtain that controls everything in Hollywood, Mr. Roque, that said Camila has to be the girl. And the implication being that Camila slept with these studio heads. Now, I get that from a line at the party scene when we see Luigi Castiglione sitting there, which is Angela Badalamenti's character, and we hear Camila saying in the background during the party scene, "Yo, nunca fui a Casablanca con Luigi," which is, Spanish for "I never went to Casablanca with Luigi." And she looks very indignant about it. The implication being that she slept with a studio head.
Right.
And Diane hears that, and that becomes, part of what we see later of this conspiracy this is the girl to make Camila the girl that gets the part. I can't see the comments here for some reason. I'm clicking on comments and it's saying chat with us, enter my name.
Oh, don't worry. But I can, when there's a good comment, I bring it up. What's funny is that when I watched Mulholland Drive for the first time, or for several times when the movie came out, I love Justin Theroux. I love his look. I love the way he acts in that movie.
Yeah, I love that. Aaron Kesha character is great.
But it's funny to watch that movie in recent years. He looks exactly like J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, and of course, J.J. Abrams was, all over ABC at that time because he was doing Alias and things like that.
And then Lost right after, yeah, or the pilot of Lost.
Yeah. So I wonder if Lynch saw him like walking around the hallway and goes, "That's the look."
That's Adam Kesher. Yeah.
Number 9. Note the occurrences surrounding the man behind Winkies.
Mm-hmm.
So we know one of those was shot for the pilot, but that one of him even the guy going behind that was shot for the pilot too.
Yes, it was.
Because it's not in the pilot that I have. So
no, it was also shot as part of that. Because you remember the Twin Peaks European ending. Yeah. It was going to be a similar thing, and I don't know because I know people are probably going to ask me. I have no idea what that was going to be, other than Club Silencio and the blue box in the bag.
Okay, so if
I know that because I knew Bonnie Aarons back then, and she had told me.
Yeah.
Back then we had talked about it, and she said, "Yeah, I found another thing too, where I had a blue box and I put it in a bag." This is when it wasn't picked up, before it was announced it was going to be a film.
Okay.
So I know for a fact it definitely was shot here at the same time.
So they didn't bring any of those guys back for the reshoot?
You mean they brought the old couple back?
No, but they brought back the one guy because
Dan.
Because Naomi Watts sees him standing at the diner.
Yeah, they didn't bring back Herb. They brought back Dan, and Bonnie Aarons, who played the bum, did not come back for the reshoots for the feature film. But the old couple, Dan Birnbaum is the actor that plays Irene's companion, and Jean Bates, who plays Irene, who also, by the way, the old woman who played Irene, Jeannie Bates, was also the Mary X's mother in Eraserhead.
Right.
And so she was brought in for the reshoot, well, obviously, where they come under the door and all of that. Then none of that was in the pilot. And also Bonnie, she didn't know that they were going to come out with a bag.
Okay.
She didn't know that was going to happen.
So let me ask you this. Mulholland Drive, obviously doesn't go to series. So why didn't they just kind of do what they were going to do with the Twin Peaks pilot and just release it overseas with all this footage and just have it be done?
I think that probably would have happened if David Lynch had not, been given the funding and the go-ahead to make the feature. I'm assuming that's probably exactly what would have occurred, is that it probably would have been, they would have released that. And like I said, there probably was more shot. I don't know what it was. There's certain things that I only know certain things were shot for the pilot. I know Silencio was, I don't know about the cowboy saying, "Hey, pretty girl, time to wake up." I don't know if that was shot for the pilot, alternate ending, or if that was shot for when it came back for the feature.
I find it very odd too that Criterion only puts that one scene of Robert Forster in the deleted scene section.
Yeah,
because there's other ones, obviously.
Yeah, there's another one with Robert Forster. There was.
Right.
Definitely another one shot with him, 100%.
Okay. All right, so I sent you my my take on Mulholland Drive, and again, everybody has their own take on the film. It's one of the beautiful things about David Lynch's work, but it's easier for me to show you the video than me to explain it. So, all right, and you can find it on this channel. So, all right, so what did you think of that take?
I really liked it because I liked the idea of the hit at the beginning being. I thought it was a really interesting take on it because I hadn't heard that before. Normally everything I've heard is a variation of the dream theory, which is, an obvious one and makes sense.
Right.
But I really liked hearing a different take on it, and I thought it was good. And I've not heard that one before, so it was.
Well, it's because unlike other people, I tend to see Lynch's stuff being pretty, like, he talks about being straight as an arrow.
Mhm.
I kind of look at a lot of his work, almost the bulk of his work, as being pretty straightforward. And I get that because, regardless of surrealism and dream logic and stuff, I mean, Razorhead, straightforward. Elephant Man,
Mhm.
Dune, Blue Velvet is like a stage play. Wild at Heart, everything. Twin Peaks seasons 1 and 2, everything's just like, if you're paying attention, we're going straight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Except for Inland Empire being
That's
obviously.
that's where
Yeah,
I
that's
don't.
where.
Okay, yeah, Inland Empire to me, no offense, David. Okay, I will always buy it. If you come out with a 4K, I'll buy it. Okay, but Inland Empire to me always feels like an editor could have cut that movie up in any which way, thrown it on the floor, put it back together, and it still would have been Inland Empire.
See, here's my thoughts on Inland Empire, and being 100% honest. And again, obviously David Lynch isn't watching this, but if somehow he hears about it, I apologize. But it's the first time I saw a David Lynch film in the theater, and I walked out and didn't like it the first time I saw it.
Mm.
However, I've reevaluated since, and now I appreciate it. Now I like it. I watch it, but I would still say I would feel that if he had maybe Dwayne Dunham or Mary Sweeney in there with the same footage,
Mm-hmm.
I do feel there's probably a better movie to be made out of the footage.
So when I met Jennifer Lynch prior to me interviewing her, I said, "What did you think of Inland Empire?" And she just said, "I gotta tell you, all it did was make me miss Mary Sweeney's editing."
Yeah.
That was her reaction. And then I've seen other interviews she's given where someone has the gall to ask her, "What's the movie your dad made you like the least?" And she answers Inland Empire.
Yeah.
So what do you think is I don't think it's the camcorder aesthetic. That's not what turns me off about the movie. It feels, for a Lynch film, it doesn't feel paced correctly. I don't know. It just feels off.
I just think I think if he had worked with Mary Sweeney or Dwayne Dunham with the same footage, because he shot so much footage for that film.
Apparently, from what I understand, it was. I think there was a 5.5-hour cut.
Yeah, and I just think there probably could have been a better movie out of it. But since I don't know what that other footage was, I mean, I know I've heard stories here and there about what some of it was, but like I said, I appreciate the movie now. I have an appreciation for it. It's definitely not the top of my list. Every once in a while, I'll watch it if I feel in that mood. And there have been times where I've watched it and I've kind of gotten into it and I thought, okay, I'm going along with this now. I'm just letting it take me, and it takes me to the place that it does. And, it gives me the visceral feeling that it does. And, I think now I've worked out kind of a theory basically of what's going on in that film, but I guess it's probably for another another discussion. Yeah. Because that would take me a long time to explain it all, but I have worked out a whole idea about it.
It also, yeah, I mean, it doesn't say it on the disc, but he secretly put in chapter stops because there's no menu, but if you do just like skip ahead, there are chapter stops. And I guess he got yelled at. He goes, "Listen, no one's gonna sit through this movie in one shot. Okay, you got to put some chapter stops in this."
Yeah. Listen, I think that's the one that needed the 10 clues rather than Mulholland Drive. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. So did I say the last clue? Let me think. Oh yeah.
Oh no, you were on
number 10. Number 10 is
Man Beyond Winkies. Yeah, I think it was
right.
the last one.
Number 10 is Where is Aunt Ruth?
Dead.
Probably. Everybody's dead in Mulholland Drive.
Because Diane Someone at the end says, when my aunt died, well, she left me some money. She worked here. In the movies, that opened. So we know Aunt Ruth is dead, which to me was the clue that that's Diane's death dream, and that is, in fact, that's why Aunt Ruth is there at the end,
Right.
It's, for lack of a better word, a kind of it's a dream of Diane, but it is also a Bardo-esque sort of experience in a way.
Right. It also makes me, when they're walking up to Adam's house in the black dresses and stuff, it reminds me a lot of that film from the 70s called Vampires. Where it's a lesbian vampire movie made in the 70s. It's just the way the women are lit and dressed and stuff, it looks a lot like that. So
yeah, to go back to about the ashtray and the robe,
yeah,
and all and that, I mean, the significance of that really is to show, because at the end, and I know that we'll get to your theory here because I know your theory is different, but
the ashtray is broken and then it's together.
And also, yeah, it's gone because the neighbor takes it, and then it's there showing that we're now at a time before the neighbor took it. So it's kind of showing when things occurred, if we were to believe that that last part is what actually happened. Now, your theory is that basically everything we're seeing happen, Betty comes to town, and then once they open the blue box, they've opened up Pandora's box, and Betty is now living as Diane.
It's a flash. I think I look at it as like it's a flashback to before Rita lost her memory.
Right. And Betty's living Diane's life.
Right. We're basically seeing Diane and Camilla, but we're basically just seeing Betty playing the role of Diane.
Right.
And it's like, well, Betty really wanted to know what was going on. So the universe says, okay, you want to know what's going on? Here, live it. And
so then when Diane shoots, when Betty Diane shoots herself, then, because I said I have a few questions, and I'm just curious. When Betty Diane shoots herself, then that's Betty dying now. So Diane already died, and now when Betty does that, she dies.
Yeah, right. She's I kind of look at it as sort of like a Twilight Zone. Be careful what you ask for.
Right. She wants to know what happened. We're going to put you right there and show you what happened.
And you're going to live it, and it's going to be the end of you.
Right. So, it's going to kill you at the end.
And you will not have any more questions.
I won't.
No, I mean, I just take I just saying the universe is just kind of like, it's sort of like, remember, spoilers for like The Vanishing, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, you really want to know. And then in the final moments, he finds out and he doesn't want to know anymore.
No, definitely not. That's a really horrible thing. Also shot in Snoqualmie, interestingly enough, the remake with Kiefer Sutherland.
Right.
Yeah, it was shot there, and at that gas station right up in the main area of Snoqualmie. Right. One that I've gone to many times when I've been up there.
Oh yeah,
Sam Stanley, up in Snoqualmie again, huh?
Exactly. They have good chips at that place. I remember going into their store.
So my question too is about your theory is the bum.
Yes.
So how would you factor in the bum?
Just a Black Lodge entity that just oversees, that makes sure that people are going down the wrong path at all times.
Right. So when they're saying he's the one that's doing it, one who's kind of manipulating events, so to speak. So would the bum be the one then who has given Betty this ability to live as Diane, or is that the cowboy?
I kind of look at them as like the Black Lodge. There's Mike, there's Little Man, there's Woodsman. I feel like it's all like one big, just horrible conspiracy of evil creatures.
Right.
You know what I mean? That just
it's a really interesting way to look at it.
Each person kind of fulfills a part. There's like I kind of look at the bum as sort of like, the main person that oversees, and like the cowboy is sort of like, the number two person who comes in and makes things happen.
Right. So when Rita gets sucked into the box, and when the box opens and Rita gets sucked into the box, Simpson is she gone then? Or is she gone when Betty has?
I kind of look at it. I kind of look at it as like I don't know. My feeling is at that point the rest of the film is just a flashback,
right?
And so you can draw your own conclusions. Whatever happened to Rita / Camilla later?
Yeah, because those were my main questions I had for you after watching it, was about the bum and that. So I just asked.
Yeah, I just kind of take it as like why it's like the movie stops to do its flashback and we end on the flashback. So who knows what happened? But Betty's not there anymore. I'll tell you that one.
Right. And then Ruth's appearance at that point, which has always been, a bit a very mysterious element, is Aunt Ruth walking in.
Right.
When they're both gone.
Well, that's why I was thinking that that's why I feel like the first half of the movie really did happen, because it really was like time had passed and she came back from her trip and things were different.
Right. And then Diane had a different aunt. Then Diane's aunt would have been different than Betty's. When Diane says her aunt died, because Diane doesn't name her aunt as Ruth. She just said, when my aunt died.
Right.
She left me some money.
Right.
So that could be a different aunt.
There's a lot of people in LA that have an aunt.
There are a lot of people in general do.
So, I kind of look at it as like David Lynch making a little statement about that. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people think that David Lynch just kind of throws paint on a canvas and
Jackson Pollock.
that scene
I don't think so.
that scene feels right. I'm just going to go with that. I do think that David Lynch has his own interpretation of these things.
I believe he does, and he said many times that he figures. I think what he does is this, and this is based on everything that he says. I think that first of all, I think he has a very strong belief in that. His whole belief in the unified field, that everything comes down to one point of consciousness. So I think that he believes that when he has an idea that's coming from that point, and that the other correct ideas are going to show themselves. And I think he acts on intuition. And once he gets the right ideas and it all feels right, and a story starts coming together, because he talks about idea fragments. I think once the story starts coming together, then he really examines it and he figures out for himself what it means. And he said that before. He said, I have to figure out for myself what it means.
Right.
So I think he kind of lets it come, and then he figures out what it means to him, and then that kind of gives him a way to go. So I don't think that he's just throwing things out there. I think he is genuinely getting these ideas and feeling that they feel right to him, and he listens to what they tell him, but then he has to, for himself, say, okay, here's what I'm trying to
do. The films would never feel like a coherent, I know it's a weird word to use, but a coherent whole if he didn't have,
you
know what I mean?
And they all do. They all, maybe not Inland Empire, it does more now, but all the others definitely do.
Right.
I'd say now, would I call Inland Empire a coherent whole? But the other ones all do.
No, Inland Empire definitely reeks of a bunch of short scenes that he scripted that day, went and filmed it, and then the ones he liked made it into the cut.
And I think with that, I think at the end he came up with kind of the movie idea, and that was kind of the thing that tied it together.
Right.
But like I said, that's a whole other discussion. But everything else definitely feels very coherent, even if right away you're not getting what it is. Like I remember the first time I saw Mulholland Drive. Well, that's a whole other story too. People are interested in that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I got to go to the cast and crew screening of that one, which was amazing. And I remember afterwards I got to drive. We gave the guy that played the limo driver a ride back to his car. So I just saw Mulholland Drive for the first time. I'm sitting in a car behind the limo driver who's driving in front of me.
Right. Did you check them for weapons?
I really should have, because it really felt like I was now living the opening of the film I just saw. But I remember I saw the movie, and I remember turning around saying, that's the greatest movie I ever saw when it ended. I just loved it so much. I wasn't sure what it all was yet, but it felt total. It felt complete. It just was an amazing experience, and I loved it so much. Mm-hmm. And then in the days to come, I started piecing together what it meant to me. But right away, I didn't know at that exact moment, and I didn't really care, because I knew
But just emotionally, it feels like you've just had an experience.
Exactly, and it just felt so full and emotionally impactful and everything else. Mm-hmm. And I just it felt so connected, and I knew I'd be able to untangle it after a little bit. But I looked forward to visiting that again.
Right.
And that's the way most of his films, that's pretty much all of them feel. So I don't think that it's just, he's not doing a Jackson Pollock and just throwing paint at, a canvas.
No, maybe if he made one film, 2 films, but he's been doing this for 50 years. So
and you can see the themes, that pop up again and again. And, Mulholland Drive at its core, I think no matter how you look at it, it's very much a Hollywood story. It's about, Hollywood and the system, how it basically takes people, eats them up and chews them and spits them out.
Well, when I started doing these videos a decade ago, I brought up the idea, and this wasn't being talked about at the time. Now I've seen it kind of mentioned, but I always referred to it as his LA trilogy, right? Mm-hmm. Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, Inland Empire. Yeah. And the thing is I feel like Lost Highway, to me, I sometimes feel like Lost Highway is his most dated film because of the music choices. It feels very 90s.
90s, yeah.
Now, that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that the majority of his work is kind of timeless feeling, but that one feels very much like mid to late 90s. But then it's to me, I feel like, to use Chris Nolan, Lost Highway is Batman Begins. Mulholland Drive is The Dark Knight. That's like the great one. And then Inland Empire is The Dark Knight Rises, the overbloated movie that needed to be tamed down in the editing somehow.
I would say that's a fitting analogy. Yeah, that works.
So,
that works.
But no, I've seen, I think from Wild at Heart on, I didn't. Wild at Heart on, I've seen all his films except for Inland Empire multiple times in the theater. Like Wild at Heart was like 5 times, and Lost Highway was.
Yeah.
I was managing at the theater that Lost Highway and The Straight Story were playing in, so I saw that
nice.
more times than I think I can answer for. Mulholland, no, it was Lost Highway and Straight Story, and then Mulholland Drive. I think I saw 4 times in the theater, and then Inland Empire was once.
I did see it. I think I saw Inland Empire 3 times in the theater, which would definitely be the least amount. Because Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive and Straight Story, definitely I saw multiple times. And Wild at Heart, I mean, every one of them. Fire Walk with Me, I don't even know how many times.
Probably, that's right, Fire Walk.
Probably 7 or 8.
Yeah, no, I saw it in the theater multiple times too. So, it's you got to see his films in the theater. Not that you can't appreciate them at home, but you should see them in the theater. And I've gone to see Wild at Heart again a few years ago in LA. They had the sound down so low. I couldn't.
Oh, it's horrible when they do that.
Yeah, because it's like Wild at Heart is supposed to be cranked up as loud as possible. So every time they light a match, it's like D-box. Your whole theater is supposed to shake.
Yep, it sure is.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't do it's wrong. I mean, that's why the best screenings I've ever been to are the ones that are actually official David Lynch screenings where he's there. Because they even did in the late 90s, after Lost Highway came out, he did a retrospective at LA County Museum of Art, and David Lynch was there. So, and when he was there, he set the projection exactly as he wanted it. And obviously at the Mulholland Drive screening and the season 3 premiere and the Missing Pieces, all that stuff, he did that. And when it's set to his specification in the theater, it is amazing. Because you see it as it's meant to be, and you hear it as it's meant to be, and that theater rocks when it's supposed to. I mean, you can feel it, and it's just
every time Power Mad starts up, the whole theater goes like the whole theater shakes.
There's another little moment in there that's speaking of Power Mad, because I just had a screening of Wild at Heart. I had people over a couple Thursdays ago and did that. And there's just this moment that I've always noticed with that. In the theater, you also hear it too. It's when Lula's in the bathroom in the stall with Sailor. And when he says, "You lousy piece of white trash," and then he punches the stall door and you hear the Power Mad.
Marietta, not Lula.
Yeah, Marietta, sorry. and he hits the thing about Lula's mama. And he hits the stall door.
Oh yeah.
And you hear Power Mad. It goes pop, pop.
No, but again, I remember all these moments because the seats would shake every time, and it was so loud and like super clear. And like, when he talks about Marietta in the documentary, he talks about like, Marietta, she's dying inside, and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That is how I kind of look as Sarah Palmer in season 3, especially
like
towards
Marietta.
The end.
Interesting.
She, how because Marietta's at the end where she's like, crying in the little, she's like crawling on that little chair and girl, what if I told you not to go? Like, to me, I feel like that's Sarah Palmer, Judy, like at the end of season 3. Like that Sarah Palmer is literally dying inside.
Yeah, and so is Marietta at that point. Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we get to the deleted scene where you find out that Marietta, and it's also in the book too, where you find out that Marietta married Santos.
Right.
And so obviously, there's got to be a part of her that knows. And they're also in the script, you get the bit where the letter from Lula to Sailor, where she mentions that Johnny Farragut plumb disappeared. So Marietta's got to kind of know and be, suppressing that knowledge that Santos very likely killed Johnny. And that,
well, that's what I was going to say. Like during the scene that they cut out with Juana and stuff, I think the reason why people reacted to it, not only because of, maybe being gross or because Harry Dean Stanton has the greatest puppy dog eyes in the history of cinema.
Yeah. And so Johnny Farragut's very sympathetic.
And so when he like just drops his face and looks like the Huckleberry Hound or something like that, with his eyes, you just feel for the dude. And then,
and when he realizes it's Marietta that did it, I forget to show you this. And then he kind of looks at it and says, Santos, my God, Marietta. his realization of
But he's not mad at her. He's like sad for her.
yeah, he's so sad that this is what's happened. He's heartbroken. He's literally heartbroken at that moment.
Right.
So in his last moment, he has to have that heartbreak, and that's yeah, it's devastating.
Right. And that's why, like, when they grab him in the hotel and they smash him, even that sound is like,
Oh yeah,
it's like, it's fantastic.
and that's the thing too that David Lynch does so well is he gets this emotion, this empathy that you feel for the characters, and he just gets that across so beautifully,
Right.
just in these little moments, and he just knows how to do that and just hit these notes, and it's something you really can't even teach. It's just something that he does.
And since Dwayne Dunham and worked with him, did you ever talk to him about, like, did they film that entire script of Wild at Heart? Because I would say like 70% of that script is not even in the movie.
Yep. I talked to him quite a bit about that. And one thing that Dwayne always said about Wild at Heart is he talked about how, and you'll notice that if you read the script and you look at the film, about how they made so many editing choices where they reorganized and
reorganized the whole film.
Yeah, and Dwayne Dunham told me, he said it's like a bingo board in a way with the scene numbers, what they ended up doing. And the way Dwayne works, and he did it on my film too, and he said that he does in all of his films, is he gets all these cards, index cards, and he writes each scene number, and then he gets different color pins. Mm-hmm. So when the scene is first cut as a rough cut, I forgot what pin color, but he puts one pin in there, and it's one color, and then when it gets more finessed, it's another color, and then when it's final and it's in its final lock position, it gets another color. So what he did in Wild at Heart is they'd have all the scenes on the board. And he said they'd end up moving them around a lot. Like, what if we put this scene over here, and then he moves the index card? It creates like an editing timeline on the board in a way.
So did they construct like a version of the film that was to the script, and they looked at it and said, we got to make a lot of changes, or did they do this while they were editing just in general?
I believe they did an assembly at first. Just assembling the whole thing, and then went through.
That movie must have been 7 hours long.
It was long. I know that. And then I know that Dwayne also said, because, the opening scene was going to be a flashback in Act 3.
Right.
With a sailor killing Bobby Ray Lemon. And then that was, the choice to open with that instead.
Yeah. Well, how can you not open that movie with that?
Yeah. And it would be really weird to think of the movie just opening with Sailor in jail, and then.
Well, it begins with Lula and her friend Beanie at the club talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the opening stuff was not shot. That's in the script. All the stuff with the motorcycle accident and the kids with the bees and the old couple.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about.
Not filmed.
Okay, so
I asked Wayne, not filmed.
Okay, what about this? When Lula's driving to go pick up Sailor, and she says, "Don't look, honey, it's an accident," and then the camera moves over to the accident. Right? Is the person dying on the ground? Is that Cousin Del?
I don't think that's Crispin Glover. No. I never thought it was.
A lot of people have pointed that out to me over the years. Like, I think that's Crispin Glover, and I was like, that would be amazing if they tied in Cousin Del at the end.
But I never thought that was Cousin Del. That never occurred to me. But it doesn't look. I mean, it didn't jump out.
But it looks like his hair is pulled back, and he's like with the blood and stuff like that.
Right. Of course, the guy comes in the wheelchair comes up as Malcolm Sloan from Twin Peaks. Nicholas Love, who played Malcolm Sloan in season 2 of Twin Peaks.
Okay.
Evelyn Marsh's brother. Quote unquote.
There's a lot of weird people. I mean, obviously we know about Shirley and Sherilyn Fenn and stuff, but like Beanie, of course, who's Laura Dern's friend.
Yep.
She's in the hotel.
She's the doctor in season 3 also in part 16. That lets Cooper go. And Louis Birdsong Budway, who tells in episode 11, no title, just episode 11, who tells Ben Horn about M.T. Wentz coming to town.
Right.
And she's also the woman with no name in episode 7 of On the Air, the final episode of On the Air, that David Lynch wrote with Bob Ingalls.
So David Lynch obviously likes her as an actress. Yeah.
I've interviewed her before for something that I did for the festival, I think in like 2010. She was really nice, and she told a really funny story about David Lynch. And I don't know how many people have seen all of On the Air here, but she plays this beatnik character in the last episode called The Woman with No Name. Now, Jack Fisk directed that episode, but David Lynch wrote it with Bob Ingalls. And David Lynch called her before they filmed it, and to tell her about her character. And she told me that he got on the phone, and that because she plays the beatnik. So he got on the phone, and she said that he just did this. He just went, "Can you feel that beat? You're a beatnik. That's who you are."
The way she keeps up with Richard Beamer in that tracking shot where she's telling him about M.T. Wentz, that's like 1930s classic comedy kind of movement, and she does
Totally.
it so well.
Totally.
So when I saw those deleted scenes with her, I was like, oh, she's playing the role, because I had read the book after I'd seen the movie, but I remember reading the book going, God, there seems to be a lot missing. And then I read the script, I was like, oh my goodness, there's definitely a lot missing from this film. I love Wild at Heart. It's not like a case like Fire Walk with Me where I'm like, God, I wish a lot of these deleted scenes were in the film. I think it would make the film better. I think that they really made, as far as I can tell from the deleted scenes, the best cut of Wild at Heart they probably made.
Yeah. I think the edit is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love the deleted scenes too. I mean, I like the whole bit with Reggie and Drop Shadow stalking Johnny. It's quite creepy when he keeps running into them everywhere. And then when they in there with Reggie and Drop Shadow, are in there with Juana when he's having dinner with Marietta, and he looks up and they're there. It's quite eerie. But did it need to be in the film? No. I mean, the film is pretty great as it is.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even like Blue Velvet, it's like, I think that's just like the most perfect edit I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know,
well, Dwayne Dunham's a great editor.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
And no offense to Mary Sweeney, but like, I could tell that it wasn't Dwayne Dunham doing Fire Walk with Me. You could just tell. Because his edit of David Lynch's work, from Blue Velvet, the Twin Peaks pilot, Wild at Heart, it's so precise. And I think you even mentioned, right, they got it like 1 second under 2 hours for Blue Velvet.
I think it was 5 frames. Yeah.
5 frames. Right?
Yeah. So right under there. Yeah.
Right. So you could just tell that like Fire Walk with Me was not quite. And I guess, I mean, I didn't notice. I guess, but Mary Sweeney was his apprentice. She worked under him
on Blue Velvet. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, she goes way back with David Lynch.
And her first editing job with David Lynch was episode 14, the reveal episode of Twin Peaks.
Which is insane, because that's,
which is masterfully edited. I mean, she did an amazing job, and that whole episode is incredible.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think that's the best episode of the whole series?
Are we including all 3 seasons, everything? Or just
just the first 2 seasons?
I go back and, I'm very partial to the finale of season 2. I really, really love that. But those 2,
because you know what it is? It's not just
right up there.
It's the log lady showing up at the sheriff's station, them going to the roadhouse, Maddie's murder, Julie Cruz's song, that dissolve from Cooper's face to the red drapes.
Oh, it's just incredible. Yeah.
Right. Even the arrest of Ben Horn, I think that last 20 minutes of episode 14 it's
masterful. It's absolutely masterful. It's emotional. It's hard hitting. It's powerful. It's
the longest 20 minutes of my TV watching life.
Yeah.
Because I saw that thing saying on November 10th, find out who killed Laura Palmer. And I'm just like sitting there like, okay, they're arresting Ben Horn. No, we're still going. Where are we going? What's going on? Right.
What's going on at the Palmer house? Wait a minute. White horse? What's that? Wait a minute. Yeah.
And I mean, I remember that night going, okay, Leland did it. Okay. But I guess there were fans out there that thought that Ben had killed Laura and Bob jumped into Leland.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Okay. So here's my question about this, since we're back at Twin Peaks. We've heard these stories that like he filmed Maddie's death a few times. One with Beamer, one with Ray Wise, one with Bob.
It's true.
Okay. But why would Beamer shoot it? Because he's arrested. Why would he think that it was even a possibility?
Here's what I can tell you about that, because I've spoken to Richard Beamer extensively about it in person. And here's what it was. Richard Beamer, he knew. What happened was, when he took those, Richard Beamer, Ray Wise, and Cheryl Lee, and told the 3 of them. So Richard Beamer knew that he wasn't actually the killer, but he had to go on there to fool the rest of the crew and do the scene as though he was. So if you notice, the only way that what they would have told the crew is, well, Ben Horn gets arrested after he kills Maddie, would have been what the crew would have had to have believed.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
And, but what he told, what Richard Beamer had to do the scene for real. And when I asked him about it, he got disturbed even talking about it. He really was disturbed doing that scene. But he said, I said, did you do the choreography on the couch, the hitting, all of that? He said, everything. He said, I had to do everything. All three of us did the same thing. So somewhere, who knows where, there's footage of, Richard Beamer, because, they had to print it. They, printed the negatives, I'm sure, like everything else, because they had to, not let people know who the actual killer was. Of Richard Beamer going through all of it, lifting her up in the air, all of that.
See, if I was David Lynch, I wouldn't have had Beamer do it. I would have made Kyle do it. Because especially if we're gonna go where we're gonna go,
Mr. C, yeah,
get him used to filming a scene like that.
Yeah, which of course then the closest we would get to that would be the Daria scene.
Okay, that is brilliant. That I think he's so menacing in that scene.
Yes, he is.
That he basically doesn't do much the rest of the season, but because that Daria scene is so in our minds, we think that he's capable of this at any moment.
Yeah, and that's where you really see the Bob element there too in that scene.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Obviously, they had figured out the makeup choices by then because they had already filmed him at the sheriff's station with this golden bronze on him. They managed to take that off. That scene with Daria, again, that comes in the first 4 hours. I think the first 4 hours of season 3 of Twin Peaks, and don't get me wrong, like obviously it's written, but those first 4 hours feel kind of like the start of season 1, where the first 3 episodes, it says written by Mark Frost and David Lynch, and you feel it. I feel like those first 4 episodes are really written by Mark Frost and David Lynch. And then as it goes on, it feels more like David Lynch kind of took it over and kind of did his own thing. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but those first 4 episodes are very much like the start of season 1, where it's very visual, it's very emotional, and it's very literate. Like, like the way Ben Horn's talking to Blackie and he's quoting Shakespeare and stuff like that. Like that's all Mark Frost coming in with that stuff a lot. I'm fairly positive about that. So it's like this idea of mixing everything, the literate, the emotional, the surreal, the real, all that. I get that with the first 4 episodes of season 3. It then becomes something else. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but those first 4 episodes, I think there was a reason why they dropped those first 4 episodes the first night.
Yeah, and then part 5. Okay, I might explain. I know we're getting off Mulholland Drive, but
we'll get back to it.
But part 5 here of Twin Peaks, I wanted to explain something that I think that I don't really hear a lot of explanations for, but to me it's pretty clear what it is. And I've told a few people this, and they seem to like it when I tell them. And I just started thinking about, when you said that, I started thinking about what changes in part 5. And one thing that we get at the beginning is the character of Lorraine and her BlackBerry and her message, the Argent to Buenos Aires.
Right.
And the black box in Buenos Aires.
Right.
And a lot of people have said, what's the black box about? Now, I think it's kind of interesting. And to me, I think I've completely figured out what that is. And what I believe that is this. I think that Lorraine, obviously Duncan Todd, who's, Patrick Fisher's character, same actor who plays Dan in Mulholland Drive, he obviously was being forced by Mr. C to put out these hits, the hit on Cooper. So when he hired Lorraine, I think that Lorraine had this BlackBerry, and she was told, if the hit goes wrong, you type in this code Argent2 and you do this. If for some reason it doesn't go down right away, and we're going to send you, whatever the backup plan is. And I believe what happened was, because Mr. C's in jail, I think at this point, I think when she does that, it triggers, it bounces off, because we know there's all these bouncing things off, like when Mr. C texts Diane and she texts him back, and Albert talks about it, bouncing off the cell tower in Mexico and all this stuff. So I think that when Lorraine does this, it bounces off that black box. And when she did that, it triggered the red box that appeared in Duncan Todd's computer. Now that red box is what he does, is his signal that he needs to now take out Lorraine too. And that's when he gets Ike the Spike and sends him both pictures. So I think Lorraine inadvertently triggered her own death, because Mr. C's in prison during that time. He can't call anybody or send that red box to Duncan Todd. That was an automatic relay.
Right.
And then when Mr. C does the cow jump over the moon, he disintegrates, basically disintegrates the black box, no trace of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now here's something that doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
I think I posed this question to one other person before, but I want to get your take on it. Maddie's death, obviously huge. Like, to this day, even Harley Payton wonders how the heck did they get that on ABC television.
I wonder too.
Right? I mean,
I
think it's more violent than anything we see in the movie, to be honest.
Yeah.
But here's my question to you: why is, I hate to say this, I don't mean this disrespect, why is an insignificant scene, I guess, of Lorraine getting killed, why is that the most gory death of the entire 3 seasons and the movie? Why did Lynch make that choice? Just grand guignol humor, or what?
I think he was trying to display the absolute brutality of like the Spike to set him up as the nemesis of Cooper at that point, because we know he was going to go after Cooper next. So I think by seeing how violent he is, it made us as the audience fear for Cooper and Janie E. Because she could get caught up in that too.
It felt very Dario Argento at that moment.
Yeah, it did. It did.
I would
say that's the most brutal. But in season 3, like you were talking about, as far as the most psychologically terrifying would be the Daria scene, but that's definitely the bloodiest. But the Daria scene is psychologically horrifying, more horrifying.
Right. Oh, absolutely. It's one of the, it's definitely in the top 10 great scenes of season 3.
Oh yeah.
But I just was worried, just on a gore level, like why this character that like is only in a couple scenes and has her own theme music, for God's sake.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Like I was like, why is Lynch like devoting so much? She's got her own theme song. She's gonna get like the most brutal death in terms of gore.
And there's a question mark. Because what's that office? I mean, where is she actually working? Because it doesn't seem that woman that witnesses Ike the Spike stabbing her is really aware that this is, a criminal hit woman.
But then like we're like supposed to empathize that he's sad that he bent his Spike.
Yeah, he's very unhappy about that.
When he got cast, a lot of people assumed that he was going to be like taking over for Michael Anderson.
Yeah.
But then again, when Robert Forster got cast, people thought that he was going to be playing Harry Truman.
Yeah, I did. I actually thought he was going to be Harry Truman. I thought it was going to be a recast. And I think I said this last time, but I thought that Tim Roth was going to be Philip Jeffries for a little bit.
Did you ever think that they had snuck in a David Bowie cameo before his death? I did. I thought that was going to happen.
I hoped. I certainly hoped.
Yeah, I thought for sure it was going to happen.
And I still was hoping for Chris Isaac. I was still hoping for Heather Graham and Michael Onkin. But I wasn't expecting it, but I was kind of hoping.
Yes, I remember some people thinking that like Michael Onkin was playing Beverly's like husband, because of the cancer thing and all that. I was like, no, I don't think that's
definitely
Michael
not.
No.
Yeah, definitely not. Interesting thing about that is the naming, though. Beverly and Tom Page, but spelled differently with an I.
Right.
And then we have Carrie Page, and there's another similar thing with the market. Is Carrie's Market, that's spelled Keri. Carrie's Handy Mart is where Zoe McClane's character, Victoria, and Oscar the Bag Boy work, where Sarah Palmer comes in and sees the turkey. It's also Carrie's. So it's interesting, doubling again of names, but spelled different.
Right. And we all know that the most popular main street in Odessa, Texas, is Wisteria. So.
And Rancho Rosa, which was the name that Twin Peaks was being shot under at the beginning, the production company and all that.
Right.
Of course, is the housing development in Las Vegas. So interesting point.
I don't know if I mentioned this before on camera, but like when Cooper's in the box and in season 3, episode 2, and it goes boom, 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 right? I thought he was going back in time, because when he's in the Rancho Rosa thing and everyone's got Blackberries and there's the housing crisis, I thought we were doing the housing crisis of 2008 and like everyone had Blackberries, because I'm like, David, like nobody has Blackberries now in 2017. So I thought like that, like one, we were having one timeline in Twin Peaks, and then Rancho Rosa was like 10 years earlier or something like that, And I thought I thought when they mailed the key, that's when we would know how it was connected. And the way it was connected was it was the same time.
So, but what you're saying though, Cameron, is that early on you were asking, what year is this?
I was. But because I was looking at the signpost, like Blackberries. No one's got a Blackberry now.
See, I always just took the whole thing as being, regardless of the books, I took the whole thing as being 2014 because there's many references such as Wally Brando being 24 years old, which 100% places it in 2014.
Okay, let me pause you for a second. Okay, they announced his birthday
it doesn't match.
It doesn't match at all because that would mean that he was born 1 month after Miss Twin Peaks, and Lucy, one, wasn't showing, and two, she was doing all this gymnastics on the stage. I don't think she'd be doing that.
I think that's the continuity error.
Yeah, it has to be. But look at their family photo. I mean, it's the worst family Photoshop thing I've ever seen in my life. But again, it's so bad. It's like obviously it was done on purpose, you know. But so I thought that there is sort of, you know, because of the Cooper Laura thing, I thought there was a shifting of the timelines, or you know, so that like even like Lucy's family is being moved about, you know, like because like I mean, is that really Andy's kid? I mean, he might be the parent.
I think it's Dick Tremaine. I think Dick Tremaine is Wally's biological father.
I do. I feel that way. Yeah.
I've felt that since the scene he was in, because his behavior. I mean, it's different than Dick Tremaine, but it matches much closer to Dick Tremaine than it does to Andy.
Absolutely.
There's a certain pomposity there that would be, you know, more.
I was a little surprised that he had one scene.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting more also.
Yeah, especially because they do like a whole build up to his character, you know.
Yeah. And Michael Cera, you know, being in it too. You think there would?
Well, there's that, but I mean, just like weird things too, like when when the deputy Jesse comes in and goes, "Do you want to see my car?" and all. Like it feels like he's trying to tell them, "Come outside, got something to talk to you. We're bugged in here." You know what I mean? Like
right.
And obviously not. But anyway, let's get back to Mulholland Drive.
Yes.
All right. So where were we? We were talking about the 10 clues. What are some aspects of Mulholland Drive you would love to touch on?
Okay. Well, so going kind of with the idea that I've had for a long time on it, really kind of goes this way. The way that I see it is that it is a story, you know, of the way I've always seen it is that Diane Selwyn wins a jitterbug contest. And here, I'll get to something that I don't think is talked about a lot. And that's that you notice that I'm going to go with the idea that it is a dream or a death dream, going with that idea.
Okay.
Let's just say a death dream, because that's what I've always thought. And that she's kind of reordered. It's her mind kind of, not her life flashing before her eyes, but kind of in a different way, that she's controlling it. So she gets to make her lover this blank slate that she controls instead of Camila controlling her. But you notice how things kind of shift. For instance, we know that in the reality section, Bob Brooker was the director of the Sylvia North story, not Adam Kesher.
Right.
And Diane didn't get the part. Camila got the part. So when it goes the other way around, now Lenny James, the great casting director, is saying, you know, that Wally will never get that picture made. So the one that Bob Brooker's doing, it's never even gonna get made. It's not significant. You can take that as Diane's subconscious. Well, that one, you know, anyway, it wasn't any good. Bob Brooker wasn't any good. But what I'm going with is the dialogue in it, I think, is a clue. And it's Dad's best friend goes to work. And it's about Diane. If we take this as Diane's subconscious, of being in her subconscious, because that's not the Sylvia North story. That's the other one. So this would be a creation in Diane's subconscious. So that dialogue that she's doing, where she's having an older man coming on to her,
right,
would be something that could have happened in Diane's past, a la Laura Palmer. Maybe family members, maybe it's that old couple, was somebody that she knew back home that had a darker side, almost Bob-esque second side. Maybe that the older man was a friend of her dad's best friend that did this to her. And it kind of made her
Robertson.
It kind of, maybe it did to her a little bit what it did to Laura Palmer. It definitely messed her up a little bit, and she kind of buried that memory and just remembered the good memories of those people and had, winning the jitterbug contest and wanting to be an actress, and that is her subconscious creating the scene that was her actual life, which is almost kind of like what I think was going on in the Inland Empire, where I think that Sue's the real character, Nikki isn't, and she's replaying her actual life. I think it's a similar type concept, what we see in that scene. So that's something that I haven't heard discussed a lot, that I do think that Diane had some probably trauma in her past, and I also think that when she gets to Hollywood, she doesn't get the role. And I think that she ended up working as a waitress at Winkies. I think Diane worked at Winkies, which is why in the dream segment, we see the waitress there is named Diane, who's also blonde. Now, the reason I think she worked at Winkies also is, her coffee her coffee mug that she has is the same coffee mug that they have at Winkies, that Diane has at the end of the film, the same ones.
Right.
And then she gets the name Betty off, she sees the name Betty on the actual waitress. Now, also, we get to Rena Riffle's character, Lainey, at Pink's, who is dressed very similar to the way Betty's dressed later.
Right.
And has a very similar hairstyle. So I would say that Diane, do you want to say something? Sorry.
Two quick things. One, she's talking to, I totally forget his name.
Joe.
Right, but he's the one that plays he plays sort of a god in Lost and the devil in Supernatural.
Yes. Very true.
And
Jacob. Yeah, he is Jacob. Yeah.
He is Jacob. And Mulholland Drive, you're talking about the diner scene. It reminds me, it's like, God, Mulholland Drive is such a period piece because there's nowhere else you can go outside of a diner and look in a phone book. That doesn't exist.
Very true. Very true.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I'm going to say that. So I think that what this is telling us, if we take this as Diane's dream or Diane's death dream, that basically she went there once Camila got the role in the Sylvia North story and became a star, and potentially slept around, which is why Diane constructs this whole thing about this Hollywood conspiracy that she believes occurs, that she ends up waitressing, which is what happens a lot. It's very much a Hollywood story. It's what happens to a lot of people.
Right.
She ends up waitressing, and then she ends up getting more upset as Camila. She falls in love with Camila, but Camila starts kind of moving up in the Hollywood hierarchy and kind of leaving Diane behind a little bit.
Right.
So Diane becomes more and more frustrated and more desperate to get Camila's attention and to, get Camila to pay attention to her and to bring her with her.
Well, what you're describing though is like also like if you take away even the Hollywood aspect, and you take away obviously the lesbian aspect, you just look at these two people in a relationship.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the idea of like the first time you fall in love and that person rejects you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I think where David Lynch is extremely strong, and he doesn't get enough credit for this. I know that people talk about like him being the secret horror director, and I kind of agree with that too. But what I think David Lynch is particularly very good at, and I don't see this acknowledged a lot, is he is a master of the coming of age story.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart and first season Twin Peaks, I mean, they're all coming of age stories, right?
Yeah.
You
good point.
And even season 1 of Twin Peaks, it's like just the stuff with Donna and James and Bobby. So, I mean, you have the older people solve the mystery, but then you have the young kids, growing up,
which is very Jeffrey Beaumont-esque in a way.
Right. I mean, Jeffrey Beaumont, comes back and starts grooming high school girls, and it cracks me up that when people watch Blue Velvet, because it's filmed in long shots when they go to the high school and stuff, nobody stops to think that every single girl at that high school is wearing a dress to their feet. There's nobody in jeans. They're all in 1950s dresses, right? Which is really interesting to me because David Lynch was getting me off on a tangent. David Lynch, until, because there was other directors doing Twin Peaks, until Laura Palmer wore jeans in Fire Walk with Me, I don't think David Lynch had ever put a girl in pants before in any of his movies.
Let me think about that. It's an interesting point.
And I thought, I was like, wow, is he thinking the jeans corrupts a woman or something like that? Anyway,
Because then we have Betty in jeans. We have Betty wearing jeans.
that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't until Laura Palmer broke
Yep.
the curve that like, but before that, like I believe almost all
Now
the
Renee
women.
Madison and Alice Wakefield and Sheila in Lost Highway don't.
But
They don't wear jeans. I'm thinking about.
no.
But
I mean, obviously Lula doesn't wear a pair of jeans ever. She's always just like nightgowns and stuff.
Yeah, interesting.
It's very weird. But anyway, but the coming of age story, and so taking that to Mulholland Drive, I think the reason why, because I mean, Lost Highway obviously is a guy who's like coming to terms with like potentially horrible things he's done and
he's done,
and the
hiding from it
and impotence and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of people connected with that movie in very interesting ways, but it didn't really connect with the standard David Lynch audience. And I think the reason why Mulholland Drive brought it back wasn't necessarily the lesbian aspect, but I think it was the coming of age aspect, because Mulholland Drive really feels connected to the Blue Velvet Twin Peaks
completely
world. It kind of jumps over Lost Highway.
And if you look at scenes like when Betty's breaking into Diane Selwyn's place and she goes around the side and she's, opening the window and all of that, it's very, harkening back, like you said, to Blue Velvet sort of feel.
Right.
Of somebody getting it over their head, coming of age and getting it over their head in this mystery.
And that's why Mulholland Drive is so brilliant to me, because it's like, however you want to examine it, it's there. If you want to look at it as a Hollywood cautionary tale, coming of age story, there's so many aspects to the film. If you just look at it, you go,
a love story in the City of Dreams.
That's why I felt like Inland Empire was bizarre, because it felt like it was like, okay, we did Lost Highway, we did Mulholland Drive, and like Inland Empire felt like a copy of a copy. You know what I mean? So like it felt like it was like the third generation version of the story we'd already seen told very, very well in the two previous films. And it kind of felt like leftover scenes.
Right. That's not told as well as the last two. Yeah.
Right. So again, like I said, Inland Empire comes out in 4K on Criterion. I'm gonna buy it first day. Okay. But at the same time though, it's like when you have to rank a director's works, it's like I remember Newsweek when Godfather 3 came out, and they said, look, Godfather 3 is the third best in the series, but one of them has to be, folks.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's a distant third, but yes.
Right. But that's what I'm saying, though. It's like, it's like I can love David Lynch's work, but if I was making a ranking of 1 to 10, one of them has to be number 10.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
It doesn't mean that I hate it. It just means one of them has to be number 10.
No. And that would be Dune, right?
No, it would be Inland Empire.
It would be Inland Empire. Yeah, I would put it as Dune, but not that there's not good things about Dune, but I would put it as Dune.
Okay. No, Inland Empire is definitely at the bottom of the barrel for me.
But that would probably be next in my list. It would be Dune, then Inland Empire.
I mean, I can see that David Lynch would probably put Dune at the bottom too, because of the whole Final Cut thing. But I think that, especially after I watched it on that new 4K, it's like it's so hard for me to like throw that movie under the bus. There's
I'm not throwing under the bus,
No, I know.
Last Place of a David Lynch film is still very, very good. Obviously, I love David Lynch films, so that's not, that's not an insult. It's just
no. I understand for most people they would. I just think that let's just say I can watch Dune more than I can watch Inland Empire.
And I can actually understand what you mean by that. I get that it's probably easier to watch. I do understand that. I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
And I love the idea that he, works with Alicia Witt in Dune, and then brings her to Twin Peaks, and and then Hotel Room, and all that. But like, here is that little creepy little kid with the blue eyes. Yeah, it's just it's astounding. Anyway, so
the Mulholland Drive.
Mulholland Drive, yeah.
So I was talking about Diane, what I thought her trajectory was.
Right.
So I think that what that's telling us is that she literally probably became a prostitute at one point, and that's where she came across Joe, this underworld figure.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these characters are different aspects of herself, which goes back to like what the Log Lady intro that you'll recall, where she says, in a dream, are all the characters really you, different aspects of you?
Right.
We would lead into kind of that concept that
Well,
both
I mean,
Lainey and Diane the waitress are different parts of Diane Selwyn.
yeah, I mean, going back to Fire Walk with Me with the introduction of the line, "We live inside a dream," right? That's just
Mhm.
been his thesis moving forward. And what's interesting about Fire Walk with Me is like you got, the whole Teresa Banks and then Laura Palmer, the dual stories, and then that becomes the template moving forward. Lost Highway, the two stories. Mulholland Drive has the two stories. Obviously, Inland Empire is more, but I'm just saying, like he got used to this starting off with one story, transitioning to another
Yes,
that might touch or might not touch.
absolutely. Yeah.
you know, so it's yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I think that that's kind of a lot of what's going on in there, is that that's kind of the main thoroughfare of the story, that it is a love story, like David Lynch says, that she does fall in love with Camila, but Camila does not really return that. And that when she goes to the party scene, I was thinking at the car accident, the girl is still missing. That phone call,
mm-hmm.
I think, is referring to the party scene and referring to Diane still being missing. And then the phone call, Diane from Camila saying the car's waiting. And that's why we see the last bit of the call as the same shot that we see of the red lampshade when Diane picks up the phone and it's Camila calling.
Right.
So I think that it's all part of that. And of course, it's all being controlled by the man who controls everything in Hollywood in Diane's mind, which is Mr. Roque.
Right.
Another thing,
not Angela Badalamenti spitting coffee out.
well, they are up there, but they work for Mr. Roque too, I believe. They're
right.
one step under him. And that
okay,
Luigi.
let me just pause you real quick.
Mhm.
David Lynch is I never met him. I know you have. He seems like a very lovely man. Every time I see him in an
Very
interview,
nice man.
he seems super awesome.
He is.
So where is he coming up with these ideas that like people are making phone calls to people who don't want to talk to them? And like, I mean, is there anybody who David Lynch like calls at night and they're just like not answering the phone? Like, where is he coming up with? Where is he coming up with these stories that nobody wants to talk to him?
I don't know. I think like, yeah, I mean, it's whatever he's tapping into, you know what I mean? He's tapping into deep within his subconscious, and that's what's coming out. And I think that as to why, I think it's all, it's like, a human experience. It's a human experience.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody wants to, fit in. Everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants to,
but it comes up again and again. It's like this. Like there's similar themes that come through all his work, and that's why like between Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, the fact that like he just drops the straight story in the middle of that, it's like fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is another one, we talk about David Lynch and what he's not really doesn't get the respect that he deserves for, which is the emotion that he can put into something, and just how effortlessly almost that he does that, and how he can do it non-verbally in every other way and really get you feeling something. And the straight story, obviously.
He needed to make the straight story. He needed it. And I don't mean just like he read the script and was like, okay, yeah, I want to make this movie. And I think it's obviously a callback to his childhood and the way he grew up. And he wanted to get back together with Freddie Francis and Jack Fisk and bring them together. Even Jennifer Lynch told me it's like, yeah, it was sort of like the whole movie's about reconciliation. So it's like, bringing everyone back from, his previous life and, like years earlier, not his previous life, like, not reborn, but I think he needed to do it because, people say that Fire Walk with Me is a dark movie. And what's funny about that is I always thought it didn't go dark enough at times, but Lost Highway is definitely a dark movie.
Yes.
Mulholland Drive is definitely a dark movie. Inland Empire, definitely dark. Okay. Blue Velvet's dark. Yes. Wild at Heart's dark. Yes. But like Twin Peaks is dark, but like there's enough light in those movies. Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, there's dark. They're dark. So you needed that straight story movie in there just to show people like, okay, I haven't gone down a horrible path, folks. Really, really, I can turn it off if I need to.
Right.
Because otherwise, I'd be really worried about the man if he made just Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, and Inland Empire. I'd be sending him get well cards and stuff.
Absolutely.
But No, I that's great about like his films and stuff is like, people come up with all kinds of theories. And Mulholland Drive just it's one of those movies where like pretty much anyone's theory works. If as long as
Yeah.
you think it through,
As long as you think it through and you kind of tie everything in, you could make that work. But
Absolutely.
but that is kind of the basic of what I think happened in Diane Sowen's life. And I wanted to say a few things that I don't hear said a lot, which is kind of her past in Deep River, Ontario, and what I believe happened to that based on her audition scene as Betty.
So
And
Deep River, Ontario, Deep River Apartments, and Blue Velvet.
Yep, Blue Velvet, exactly.
Yeah, it's all interconnected, which is why our conversation goes haywire, like the electricity wires.
It can't not, I mean, David Lynch films are so interconnected that you can't help but I mean, even when I was talking about the chain of phone calls with Mr. Roke, it even calls back to Mr. Reindeer and his chain of phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's another behind the scenes story. When they were filming the Mr. Roke scene, I guess Michael Janderson also thought that it was reminiscent of Mr. Reindeer because he's filming the scene where he's doing the phone calls. The girl is still missing. Right. And at one point, he said to David Lynch, where are the two naked girls massaging me in this scene?
Right.
Which was obviously, he was referring to Mr. Reindeer with the two, naked girls behind him.
When I saw the Mr. Reindeer scenes, I thought this was like One-Eyed Jack stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, that, yeah. It's just kind of, I mean, I wish David Lynch would bring back the silver dollar concept. I love that whole thing in Wild at Heart.
And if you think about it, the silver dollar concept is similar to the blue key concept in that it's a symbol of a hit.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I would say too about Mr. Reindeer is the scene when he's in the bathroom. You notice the girl that's dancing there is Lisa Ankabasa, who plays Jenny in Twin Peaks season 1, episode 6. The girl that gets the unicorn from Emery Battis and gets the another interesting little connection there to One-Eyed Jacks. And then, of course, Frances Bay, Mrs. Tremont, plays the madam for Mr. Reindeer. And I got another story about that. Oh, did I tell that one already? I think I might have told that last time.
I think you told it to me off screen.
Okay. Yeah, so Frances Bay, you remember she plays Mr. Reindeer's madam, and she has the scene where she's cursing and everything. And she said that there was a much longer speech that David Lynch called her and said, I want you to play this role in my new film, Wild at Heart. I'm writing it for you, but you're going to have to do a lot of cursing. And she said that Frances Bay was a lovely, lovely woman, wonderful woman. And she said that she turned around to David Lynch and said, come on, David, I'm a dirty old woman. You know that. I don't mind. And she said that it went on a lot longer than what we see in the film, that she did like a pretty long speech where she's cursing every 2 words, like almost Frank Booth style. So it'd be interesting to see that deleted bit too.
She's so good as the in Blue Velvet. I love her so much in that thing.
Aunt Barbara.
But like that scene though, Mr. Reindeer, it's fantastic because you have the dancers in the back with the blue dresses, and then obviously the fire spitters. So much detail for a scene that's 10 seconds long in the movie.
Yeah, it's great. I love that scene. And then Reggie entering and just the putting the silver dollar over his eye and the big grin, and then the whole thing.
Iconic imagery through the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like seriously, like and again, David Patrick Kelly showing up, and it's almost like he used Twin Peaks as a way to like cast Wild at Heart.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even in the future, because we get roles like, Frank Collison playing Timmy Thompson, the manager of the Iguana Motel, who then is Muddy in season 3 of Twin Peaks at the farm.
Right.
I mean, so even to the future.
Right. Well, once
with some of the actors.
Yeah. For a couple of years after Wild at Heart, Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern would meet up with David Lynch for dinner and ask him to do another of the books. They really wanted to come back. I can see. I mean, if you were Sailor and Lula, why wouldn't you want to do another one?
And I've read the books too, but the interesting thing is he'd have to kind of change it again because, spoiler alert, if anybody watching has not read the Wild at Heart books and doesn't want this spoiled, I'm about to do it. But in the books, okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, the books, Johnny Farragut lives. So, he appears in future books. So I wonder how that would have played out.
We don't see him killed.
I guess now we don't.
He
Now we
fires,
don't. Yeah.
he fires into the camera. It doesn't necessarily mean he fires into Johnny.
I guess that's true. However, I do happen to know this, but you can't really see it. Now, do you remember when Bobby Peru looks at the picture on the wall of Reggie,
Right.
Juana, and Perdita?
Right.
And there's a quick flash. That quick flash that you see is supposed to be the gun going off, and it's apparently a few frames of Johnny Farrow getting his head blown off or his stump, that part. But you can't really tell. So it still is. But apparently that's what that footage is. So it's in there very briefly in that moment. And then he says, the whole gang, huh? That bit.
Right. I love it. Because that's when, like, you may have had suspicions, but then again, Lynch pulls it together and lets you know, no, she's not just some random person out in the desert. Like, it's all, it just feels like no matter how far Sailor go, they keep getting stuck in the spider web.
Yep. You know? Yeah. And Sailor, because, Mr. Ranger would have known about his past with Perdita, he literally puts the hit right there in Big Tuna, knowing that Sailor's going to go walk right into it.
Right. And then years later, they made the spinoff Perdita Durango movie.
Yeah, with Rosie Perez.
Yeah, and Javier Bardem. Yeah, which is on 4K now in the NC-17 cut. Yeah,
really?
In the full NC-17 cut. So I've never watched it. But like I remember the director was at a convention I was at, and he goes, "Oh, he made this film." I'm like, Perdita Durango. Is there like another version of Wild Heart out there that I don't know about? No, it's the spinoff movie. I can't believe he didn't try to get Isabella Rossellini to show up in it.
I know, that would have been interesting. Try to kind of keep that going.
It would have been. But Mulholland Drive is, in my opinion, like Blue Velvet, like Wild at Heart. It's just like that movie is 21 years old now, as the theatrical version. It doesn't feel dated at all. It will never be dated, except for the telephone, the phone book outside the telephone.
Well, I'll say, but David Lynch always does things that are slightly dated, like even the rotary phone, and those kind of things. And everything has a 50s feel to it.
I know. I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. I have to poke a little bit of fun.
But I want to say one more thing too about my idea of Mulholland Drive too, and this is another thought that I know a lot of ideas of Mulholland Drive have been put out there a lot. I'm kind of saying some of my theories that I don't think have been said as much. And that's the character of Dan, who's, the one that has the dream. Dan and Herb are the two men. Dan has a dream about Winkies. I mean, about the bum behind Winkies.
Right.
So I think where that fits in is this. I think that the bum behind Winkies, essentially, in Diane's subconscious, it's the one who's doing basically the manifestation of that evil, of all the evil that Diane has in her. Similar to, like you said, like a Black Lodge entity, like a Bob. It's the manifestation of all of that Diane's created. That is the one who's behind all of it. At least that's her rationalization of it. Whether that's a real entity or not, it goes into the same argument of, is it Leland or Bob? But so I think when that's created, that's the when Diane orders the hit, that is created in her subconscious, this bum, this evil entity. And that's why we see when Diane shoots herself, we see the image of the bum over the screen, because that is part of Diane, like the Mystery Man is part of Fred Madison in Lost Highway.
Right.
But Lost Highway is a whole other discussion.
Do you think that maybe when the old people crawl under the door and spring up, like, is there a possibility?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a possibility that if we're talking about the aunt dying and stuff like that, like, is there a possibility that Naomi Watts' character in that moment, the Diane character, is it possible that she was molested by family members?
I believe so.
And that the old people are a manifestation of who molested her.
100% is what I believe.
So when they come at her, it's basically like Naomi Watts playing sort of like a younger version of that character, like 10 or 11-year-old, and the couple coming in to molest her. And that's why she's screaming and running away.
Yes, I believe when the dad's best friend goes to work, that he was the dad's best friend, and maybe she was involved in it too. And that when they come under the door, but also when she kind of blocked that out, kind of like the way Laura Palmer blocked out her tormentor in her mind, Diane, someone did too. So when she blocked it out, she then saw them as this source of comfort, hence them getting her off the plane, hence them being with her when she wins the jitterbug contest. But at the end, the true kind of sinister nature comes out, and not only are they doing that, but they're mocking her for what she's become, and that's why she's terrified, and she remembers them coming at her. I think you're exactly right that is a major element of that. But what I was going to say about the two detectives and Dan, so you notice that when she gives the picture, and says, "This is the girl," to Joe, the hitman.
Right.
And when he takes up the blue key and all of that, after he takes up the blue key, Dan looks over. He's standing at the counter. He looks over and he witnesses this. Mm-hmm. And then later we know that chronologically later, because she has the blue key on her table, her neighbor comes over and says, "Those two detectives came by again looking for you." So I believe Dan is the one who basically told the two detectives about what he witnessed at Winky's.
Okay.
And that's why he's so terrified, because he's witnessed the bum. He's witnessed the creation of this. So when she's having her dream, for lack of a better word, or death dream, Dan is now terrified of this god-awful feeling, this evil that he's witnessed. And he's the one that sent the two detectives onto Diane. And the pounding on the door at the end is actually the detectives in reality. But she's imagining, these people from back home that probably did torment her. That probably were friends of her father. And of course, where else have we heard the term friends of her father?
Right.
Twin Peaks.
Well, but that also connects to the heart and the whole Uncle Pooch aspect. Yep. That connects to Lula's father.
Yep.
And then what do they do to Lula's father? They kill him, and then that connects to Mark Frost, The Final Dossier, and Annie's stepfather with Vivian running him off the road,
which also connects to Jeffrey Marsh,
right?
Having his brake lines cut and having the accident,
and then that connects to Lost Highway because David Lynch really wanted to make his own version of James and Evelyn. All right. We're there. We figured it all out, I think.
Yes, we did.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep
solve the crime.
There you go. I don't want to keep you on too late tonight, but Josh, thank you so much for tuning.
You're very welcome.
For coming on and hanging out with us, talking David Lynch, Twin Peaks, and Mulholland Drive, and everything else.
Absolutely. Once again, we barely. Yeah, it's impossible to even scratch the surface on this. There is a lot to talk about.
Oh, before we go though, there is something I have to bring up. I did a video the other day saying, it was called, "Does anyone know what's going on with the Log Lady documentary?" And, it was a positive video. I just was wanting to know because it kind of popped in my head like, oh, I haven't heard anything about it. And so I looked on Twitter and saw their account was no longer there. I went on Facebook, saw they hadn't made a post in a year and a half. Went on Instagram, they hadn't made a post in 2 years. So I wanted to make a video just to kind of, because I knew people watch the channel. So I was like, what's going on with this thing? And I was like, Richard, please give us an update. Let us know what's going on, because I love the I Don't Know Jack documentary and been looking forward to the Log Lady documentary as well. So it had been so long. Anyway, so I made the video and I got a response. So this is from his co-producer, Jane. She writes, "Your timing is amazing." Making this video. "There's going to be an update tomorrow." So that's Saturday, September 10th. There's going to be an update tomorrow. And I think everyone will be pleased with it. The last few months have had one wonderful, dare I say, Catherine-directed surprise after another happen with our post-production process. I'm not allowed to spill the tea. I'll leave that to the magician, but he wanted me to tell you, thank you for the kindness and understanding you showed in the video. I know Twin Peaks fans will be happy with what they learn about Catherine, but to our delight, we found so much more about her that will appeal to people who never heard of the Log Lady. And that's not a guess. We test screened to a few people who never heard of David Lynch or Twin Peaks, and they fell in love. Our tiny crew has, like the rest of the world, been occupied by so much the last few years, and nobody had a second to keep the social media pages going. We know social media is important, and we're going to have to ramp it the heck up in the next few months. But for now, you are the first to hear this good news. We're really very nearly done.
Wonderful.
So there it is. There's your update. So that's exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I can't wait to see what this announcement's going to be. And I know they interviewed David Lynch for it, so that'll be great. And if you have not seen their previous documentary, I wish that they would reissue it, because it's so hard for people to find if they weren't on davidlynch.com in 2000. But it's an incredible documentary, and I really hope it does get reissued at some point.
Maybe it'll get a re-release with this one. This gets maybe a.
Oh my God! If they did a Blu-ray version,
double Blu-ray,
with both movies,
yeah, double set 2 discs or something would be great.
Oh my God! So, and yeah, so I can't wait. Anyway, we'll find out what's going on. But at least, hey, they followed up, and that wasn't some thrown together BS answer. That was a legit response.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, anyway, Josh, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And as for everybody else, subscribe to this channel. Come on, we're trying to get to 4,000 subs, and thumbs up the videos, and follow us on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, emails anytime. Yeah, so I look forward to our next conversation, and we're going to be getting this trivia contest up and running.
Oh yeah,
and it should be a blast. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.